All right, you guys, let's talk about something that most entrepreneurs, especially in the service-based business, really struggle with. It's letting go. I know this struggle firsthand because I've lived it. When I first started my business, Beauty Culture, I was the quote unquote technician, the top revenue producer, the one that everyone wanted to see. And I thought that that was a good thing. I believed that if I just worked harder, everything else would fall into place, including my team. And I really tried to control a lot of the detail because that would mean that my business would then be successful. But here's the truth. I was truly the biggest bottleneck in my own business unintentionally. And so for years, my business was completely dependent on me. If I wasn't injecting, by the way, I had the highest margins because I was the owner. If I wasn't the one consulting with the patients, making sales, revenue really stalled. And while that worked for a while, it truly is a ticking time bomb for any practice owner. I wasn't building a company, I was building a job for myself. I wasn't an entrepreneur, I was self employed. And that's exactly why most businesses don't last. 20% of small businesses fail within the first year. 50%, 50%, one in every two fail by year five, and only 25% make it past 15 years. And what is the reason for that? They never evolve beyond just past being the founder. This business and other businesses, if they're built around one person or even two people, it's really not a scalable team or a long-term vision. And I had to take a massive leap of faith to really change that once I started to understand and conceptualize this concept. I had to step out of being the technician and become the entrepreneur. I had to hire and trust the right people instead of having to control every move because I didn't trust my team. I had to build a business that could grow without me and be truly self-managing and sustaining and exceptional. And let me tell you, it's been one of the hardest things that I've ever done and continue to do. But once I really took that step and instead of focusing on external growth, turned that growth towards the internal and the team focus, my business has truly started to explode and now has a platform and a runway to really be able to take off. Because here's the truth. Your competitors can steal your ideas, but they can't steal your people. If your people are fully bought into the vision, then your people are not going to leave. And it is your job as the entrepreneur and the leader to get everyone bought into the vision and to show them why they're there. And to make sure that you're picking the right people that believe in that vision truly and authentically. A high performing, fully engaged team is the single biggest competitive advantage that you will ever have. So in today's episode, I'm going to walk you through why being the highest revenue provider or producer in your business is such a trap, the mindset shift that it took me as the technician to entrepreneur, how I built a team-driven business model that allows for massive growth, the biggest mistakes that leaders make when hiring, firing, and manage teams, how your people are the number one advantage in the company and how to keep them engaged, and this whole concept of the get it, want it, capability of doing it framework, or in other words, the GWC framework for knowing if you have the right people in the right seats and why you should never tolerate brilliant jerks on your team and how to identify them. If you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or like your business can't grow without you, this episode is exactly what you need to hear. So, number one, your business cannot scale if it's just solely dependent on you. When I was in the technician mindset and the provider mindset, I was convinced that working harder, and it's still hard to not fall into this trap, by the way, but I thought that if I worked harder, that will always solve all my business problems. But I had to learn the hard way that working harder is not the same as working smarter. If your business only functions when you are present, you don't own a business. You have a job with a fancy title. I'm sorry to tell you. So what do you need to scale? Well, you need a clear, repeatable process that others on your team can execute. They're also in charge of leading all of those processes. You also need a team that's empowered to make decisions and has safety in that. They can't be needing and constantly seeking approval for what they're about to do. And also, you need systems that ensure consistency. Even when you're not in the room, every time you do something, you get similar results. So, really, what you need to ask yourself in terms of this is if you stepped away for a month, would your business continue to operate at the same level? If the answer is no, this is where you really need to look in the mirror and realize that you've got some work to do. Now, I remember running into a patient who has become a friend and a mentor. And she said, my dad taught me one of the best things as a business owner is go away for 2 consecutive weeks every single year. And you really realize what is missing in your business and you identify and uncover some issues under rocks. Now, I took that to a whole new level and go to Florida every year, and we'll be spending more and more time there, hopefully in the future, and potentially building another business there and talk about scalability and a business that needs to not depend on me physically. That will be the ultimate test of that. And so I am finally at a point where I've gotten clear. I've created reproducible and repeatable processes. I have a team that's empowered, and I have systems that are consistent and checks and balances and accountability within all of that, so that I think that we are getting closer and inching closer to finally being able to do that. Number two, the leap from being either the technician or, like in our case, the provider in our role to the entrepreneur is terrifying, but it's essential. I think that I am one of the only providers that I know that has fully given up patient care. There's one other that I know in my inner circle, but everyone still keeps that toe dipped in. I think that there's many reasons for that. We love what we do. It's very, very hard to peel ourselves away from patient care. I'm tempted all the time to jump back in because I love, love, love what I do. For me, and being a visionary and looking at the industry and the trends, I recognize what the future is. And so I still play around and research. And so I get to exercise some of my technical skills there. But the biggest transition in my career wasn't really learning these new technical skills. It's been learning how to lead others and empower others and hire other people that also have great ideas. And more so, it can integrate my visionary ideas into existence. So at first, it felt like I was losing control. I was worried, what if the patients don't trust my other injectors and so they leave because I'm not seeing patients? What if my team doesn't make the right decisions and doesn't have the same outcomes? What if the business suffers without me? What if, God forbid, I have to go back in and see patients because we're not making enough revenue? But the truth is, the more that I've stepped back, the more that my business has picked up cadence and has exploded. And here's why. When you remove yourself as the bottleneck, your team can actually step up. And when you give them ownership, they start operating at a higher level. As my business coach always calls them, they start being entrepreneurs. And the ones that aren't comfortable with that and just see it as a job and don't see the vision and aren't bought in, they're going to find themselves a way out of your organization. Number three, your people are your greatest asset, not your products, not your services. I was just meeting with my healthcare attorney on some things that I'm working on trademarking, and he said, Jessica, it's not the products necessarily that you're using or the concoction of them or the recipe of them. It's really your protocol and how you're doing it. And so it's not our product. It's not really our service. It's how we're doing it. It's how everyone is interacting with our patients. And many business owners believe that their technique, their branding, their marketing, look at me, look at me doing things as their biggest competitive advantage. And I am here to tell you that they're wrong. What actually sets you apart is your people. A fully engaged team that believes in the vision, it's shared by all, they live the core values, they deliver exceptional service. That is something that no competitor can replicate. What I do at Beauty Culture isn't a secret. Our practices and other practices know our protocols. One training, they can mimic all the services and go tell all their friends. But what they can't replicate is what my team does in terms of having a deep investment in our mission and their relentless pursuit of excellence and leading the charge now in that. Number four, a disengaged team is more dangerous than a competitor. So 17% of employees in the survey rated themselves as actively disengaged, meaning they don't just slack off, they actually spread negativity, they lower morale, they drive away customers because they're just so freaking disengaged and unhappy. 50% of employees, which this is kind of staggering and scary, are just going through the motions. They show up, they collect a paycheck, they contribute nothing beyond the bare minimum. The worst thing you can do is promote these people. That means that 67% of the workforce is either disengaged or just neutral, like they just don't care. Imagine if half of your team was checked out and another 17% was actively working against you. By the way, I've been there, and that is a total business killer. The solution, get rid of those people, build an environment where people want to be engaged and they show up for more than a paycheck. Recognize effort, unique abilities, invest in their education, development, remove toxicity fast, fast, fast. Number 5 is a new one. Like, how do you get to that? Use the GWC framework. That is, get it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it. Every role in your business needs to be filled by someone who has these things: get it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it. This is how you need to evaluate your team. Anytime you're putting them in a role, if you start to watch someone not thrive in that role, do they get it? Do they have the natural aptitude to be able to do the job? That needs to be a yes. Wants it? Are they energized and motivated by their role? Are they showing up and feeling passionate about it? And capacity to do it. Do they actually have the time, the wherewithal, the skill set, the emotional bandwidth to execute? And if someone doesn't get it or want it, no amount of training is going to fix that. These are like those things that you just hire for and you can't teach. If they do get it and they do want it, but they don't have the capacity, it's our job as leaders to remove roadblocks. So we can use this GWC framework as a litmus test for not only hiring, promoting, but even letting go employees. And talking about letting go employees, number 6, never tolerate brilliant jerks. I was recently interviewing financial advisors, and we were talking about teams and we were talking about expansion. And he asked me if I had any brilliant jerks on my team. And he explained that they are just toxic employees. Even if they're incredibly talented, they're just going to cost you way more than they contribute. And honestly, these brilliant jerks, everyone, like when you say this term, like you don't even really need to know what it is to know what you're talking about. Sometimes they're the most profitable people on your team, but they need to go because short-term performance does not justify long-term cultural damage. If someone is dismissing your team's concerns, arrogant and dismissive of collaboration, bringing down the overall morale, or even if they, are producing great work, they have any combination of any of these, they have to go. Your business is built on culture and there are no exceptions. And sometimes someone will start and be great, but they dwindle over time. And you really, really need to make the decision to, in some way, shape, or form, exit those people out of your building. Number 7, the best leaders lead, manage, and hold people accountable. Being a great leader isn't about being everyone's friend, which I once thought I was everyone's friend on my team. I used to, I remember when my team was growing and there was like those moments where I wasn't getting invited out to little things here and there, and it used to kind of hurt my feelings. Now it makes me feel like I'm a true leader and, I'm not everyone's friend. I'm there to set clear expectations so that the team knows how to win. I'm there to be really authentic so that my team knows that I truly care. I am there to hold people accountable for results and not just their efforts. It's great when someone shows up and they're awesome and they do a good job, but I also have key measurables so that I can make sure that they're actually having great results and great outcomes. The best businesses aren't built on hope. They're built on really being clear and having a lot of clarity, because being clear is kind, and execution. So my final thoughts on this, an action item that you can do is evaluate your team using GWC, who's a clear fit and who isn't. Identify one step that you can take this week in leadership and ask yourself, am I leading or am I just managing a whole bunch of chaos? All right, you guys, if this episode resonated with you, share it with another business owner who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the Curated Beauty podcast so that you never miss an episode.